Yeah.
Imagine a flash mob of data scientists for your company. And instead of dancing, they're actually helping parse your data, deliver it, bring best practices, and actually delivering value to your company.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Data Scientist Show. Today we have Zheng. Jim is a co-founder of Senpai, an audio platform for experts to share domain knowledge. Jim has ventured into various careers. He worked as an engineering manager previously at Flexport, building the data platform. He was a data scientist at Salesforce. He used to work at Yahoo as a UX designer, and he was a researcher in computer science at Stanford as well. Hi, Jim. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Aliana, for the intro. And I've never had my career kind of on display in full force until now. So this is, it's definitely really glad to be here and excited.
Yeah. So before we start, I need to tell the listeners I'm staying at my friend's house. My friend has a very cute cat called Forrest. So Forrest might sing or say hi. So Jim, you started your career studying computer science, and later on you become a data scientist. How did you get into data science?
Yeah, man, that's kind of an interesting story. I think to do that, to answer that question, I have to kind of give an overview of kind of my career journey and kind of where I came from and my random path. So to be honest, the high level question or the high level answer is that it was fairly random, but I started essentially from grad school. And if you think back to what was before grad school, I was a freshman in college at Stanford. I didn't know who I was, didn't know what I wanted to do, and wanted to do something that was both creative, but at the same time had a kind of leveraged hard skills that I'd built up in my past in math and sciences. And I had never done engineering before. I throughout various stages of my career and in college, I was trying to figure out how to blend those skills. And so my start into data science was very much, internship in grad school that I found, which was an outlet for kind of my skills.
Mm-hmm. And so what were you working on when you were a data scientist at Salesforce?
I was working on a really interesting project. So at that point, Salesforce had just launched their Salesforce One web app. They essentially needed an intern to come in, be able to build either models or just do analytics on that product itself. And the team that I was on was called Product Intelligence. So it was responsible for covering essentially like the product side, the consumer facing analytics, as well as building models to help predict either churn. Honestly, churn was the biggest one. And I was coming in at a time where, it kind of played to my strengths too. So to get a little bit into the hiring aspect, it was a new product. So it required a mix of kind of both engineering skills as well as modeling skills. And I had both. And I think that's one of the reasons why I got the job.
Nice. And so why didn't you stay in the engineering track? Was it because you were curious? What made you want to become a data scientist?
It was at my first job. And I don't know to what extent I even talked to the team about this, but I think back then this was 2012 to 2013, the field itself, like, I don't know if data science was a field back then.
Right.
It was just
Called
starting
like
off.
data analyst or statistician or,
Yeah, or like
business
mathematician,
intelligence.
like
Yeah.
researcher.
Right.
At my startup that I built, I was very much working on product. So this was back in 2012. My first job was working at this company called Analytics MD, which became Qventus now. And I was there because I love working on product, and that was where my skills were. And after building, I kind of realized that I was very excited about this mysterious part of the company, where we did analytics and we tried to bring those back into the product, as either dashboarding or try to bring those insights into the product. And I wondered, okay, well, how do you actually build? How do you actually build that infrastructure? And how do you apply models? How do you actually do the exciting things? And I wanted to do everything, because I was really energetic and I wanted to own every part of the stack.
Yeah.
And so I went to grad school for that, based off of just those instincts, like where my curiosity led me. And eventually I was able to see kind of in a larger setting how that worked.
So what did you study in grad school?
I studied a mix of AI and databases. Stanford has a specific degree for this called information systems, and it's a sampling of both.
Oh, interesting. So what are some courses you find very useful for your career? For example, because you have a background in engineering, what are some elements in engineering you think more data scientists should adopt?
Oh my God. So many. Let me first talk about the data science to kind of like what skills data scientists could take from engineering. And I think a lot of it's about the thinking and the philosophy of how you develop and deploy models, right? At the end of the day, moving from a single result to a reproducible model is very difficult. And engineering isn't and the thinking of engineering is more important than the actual tools. So the thinking about, oh, how do I go from something that works perfectly in a controlled environment to something that can defend itself and work and evolve in a chaotic environment? That's something that engineering principles have evolved to try to minimize and keep consistent. And so I think that's the most impactful paradigm shift that a data scientist can adopt. Let me know if I can be more clear in terms of the tooling and like other things.
Yeah, can you be more specific and give us some examples?
Yes.
For example, if you're giving advice for a data scientist just got a job, what would you advise him? And
if the person got a job, I think the biggest thing for a data scientist might just be Google Foo, and learning how to use pandas or learning how to use R and learning how to deal with data frames might be the first thing. And I think beyond that, once you kind of mature, I was speaking more to like a senior, like a staff level data scientist. Once you get there, once you kind of have the hard skills already down and you're able to interact with your customers and talk with them and understand needs, and you know how to wrangle the data, the biggest thing becomes how do you ensure that this result is reproducible so that once you release it in production, it's predictable, right? And this is more for a larger career. Like you spend dozens of years understanding how to do this and partnering with engineers. So steps in that are I can talk about like compilation and blue-green deploys are two concepts that I think would be really interesting to bring into the data science world, especially as as data scientists are now seeing their models being deployed to production. So those concepts, yeah.
Sorry, could you say those concepts again?
Yeah, so compilation, the act of essentially taking a model and creating an artifact out of it that can be deployed, is one important process for how you control for variation in a model. So that's compilation, and it comes from the engineering concept of saying, "Hey, I'm going to take a programming language that I wrote, which are procedural, and I'm going to compile it into some type of binary that I can then deploy. And once that binary is there, it's fixed. It cannot be changed very easily, and it's also easily deployable. And then the other one is blue-green deploys. So maybe it's less about blue-green and more just about the deploy process. I want to be able to revert back to models when I need to, right? And this is more about the production deployment aspect. But it's, hey, how do I think about testing models? Because I'm not going to release one model. I want to be able to experiment, release different models, and be able to control the routing layer for where requests should go. This is getting a little bit too deep, so I want to pop back up before I get too deep into the engineering side of things. But I think it's something that data scientists should also be able to think about, is really thinking about their models itself as experiments.
Experiments. Yeah, I agree. So we definitely iterate a lot and sometimes pivot our models based on the change of requirement or different constraints regarding time and cost. So when you think of your model as experiments, what are some best practices for you to run a successful experiment?
Yeah. So one, definitely making sure that the steps are reproducible. That's probably the most important thing. Most times you get models that have code, but whenever they run, there's already an error. There's a misconfigured environment variable, and it's just impossible to actually run that end to end. There are various products out there that try to, and this is where I'm not going to mention them because we don't have partnerships on this show quite yet. But if we do, happy to mention these products. But they try to control and make these experiments reproducible. Having said that, there's a lot that goes into an experiment. There's the data, which if you're pulling, which if you represent as a SQL query, will change day to day. So how do you think about persisting even the inputs? How do you think about persisting the outputs so you get predictable results? So that's one. So being able to reproduce each step is vitally important to treating it as an experiment, right? And then I think the second one is just thinking about how your experiment performs with real data. I think a lot of people make the mistake of testing on toy data, and because it's really hard to actually test in real world data, they just say, look, I'm going to just cross my fingers and hope that this goes well on a subset of data. That's not usually, people really cut that process short. And I think you have to kind of extend that process.
Mm-hmm. So if you have challenges in collecting real world data, how do you bridge that gap?
Challenges. Oh, well, in collecting data, that's probably one of the hardest pieces. How do I, well, I mean, I can tell you how we kind of go about it at Flexport. Yeah. It's kind of an uphill battle, but we are actually at a leadership level, at an organizational level, we try to influence engineering best practices such that the engineers are actually doing the work for us of getting clean data to us. It's an interesting strategy shift because rather than putting the onus on the data scientists to clean the data, you want to actually push that work upstream. And you want to, it's kind of a paradigm shift within organizations to push data cleaning earlier in the process toward the team that actually own the data. It requires more communication, but the end result is that you get a much easier and cleaner data sets to work with. And you don't, the data scientists themselves can just dictate kind of high level instructions for quality. And the PM or the engineering team will actually go and implement it.
Yeah, so I think, that's very important actually, because a lot of times when we need data, we have to go to some engineering team, some product team to get the data, but the structure is already designed by their team. It's not very convenient for me. And if it would be more smooth in the collaboration, if we can influence their decisions on the data schema early in the pipeline. So I think that's very useful. And I think this is a very great paradigm shift you mentioned. And talking about that, I think it requires a lot of support from the leadership, because it's literally the communication from different teams, and different teams have different priorities. So during your time at Flexport as an engineering manager, how did you manage different type of teams, or what was like the role of the data science team in Flexport? Is it like a center, it tell everybody what to do to build a model, or is it supporting the engineering team? What is it like?
The TLDR is that we've evolved quite a bit on that model, and we've actually iterated on the organizational model. I think it's different. So my high level answer is that it's going to be different for every organization. And from a leadership perspective, you should iterate on the role of data science continuously throughout the evolution of your company. We started with data science kind of organically evolving from a data analytics role. So data analysts, Flexport was a startup. We were founded in 2013, and we've had incredible growth within the last 6 or 7 years. We didn't even know what our what the hardest problems that we need to solve were, and we didn't know how to incorporate AI into our products. Yeah. But we do know that we needed numbers, and that we needed to understand how our business was doing, so that we could put some of our business on autopilot, and we could just track numbers. That is especially important as our business scales. So that's how we evolved data science organically. It was starting from kind of a person who was really involved with the business, understood the specific sector really well, and could kind of start to run high-level experiments, storytell, and that became an initial data science role. Also, I'm going to pause here. Diana, how much should I go into what Flexport actually is versus just kind of going and talking about at a high level data science itself?
Oh, I want you to be as specific as possible. Tell me some details, some examples. I'm curious about how data leadership, those teams evolve. So yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I mean, this is just an evolution of our entire kind of data strategy of Flexport, where I'll talk about what Flexport is for maybe like 30 seconds.
Of course.
Flexport is a YC company started in 2013, 2014. We're a freight forwarder, and we are building technology to automate kind of shipping and logistics across the world. So if you think about our primary use cases, as I want to get a shipment of 100,000 toys from Shanghai to, let's say, Chicago. What are all the coordination steps that I have to take to be able to get the order processed, shipped, and available in my warehouse? And so the way that we accomplish that is, you can imagine analytics being extremely important because a lot of this process is not visible. It's like a 20, 30, 40 step process. And we don't really have a good way of just visibly seeing every step. So we need numbers to help track every aspect of that. So to be specific, what we did was an example of how we introduced analytics was we used this tool called Periscope. Periscope data specifically, not Periscope Live, but Periscope data, the SQL-driven dashboarding tool. And we introduced that at Flexport, and it immediately took off because we gave it to everybody, and we allowed ops people for the first time to see all the data about where that shipment was in transit, and they got visibility into all the actions that were attached to that shipment, whether it was it cleared customs or it's now on the ship, and what day was it scheduled to arrive. All of that was extremely powerful.
Cool. And then what happened after that?
So after that, we evolved kind of a data science a data science role from analytics storytelling. Then we had kind of an inflection point, and Flexport really grew and started seeing some really hard problems that could involve some really hard AI problems. So in freight forwarding, there are lots of documents that need to be processed. And these are documents that are everything from Excel spreadsheets to PDFs, very dense PDFs, to invoices. And these are all documents, right? At Flexport, I think the biggest document is called the Master Bill of Lading, MBOL, and it represents everything that you could record about the legal aspects of a shipment. So who owns what at any handoff point, who is responsible, who gets insured at what point. That massive document is something that we would love to parse via probably deep learning, but that's just a hard problem. And so we then decided at this inflection point to hire a dedicated team of data scientists to help solve the hardest problems that we could find at Flexport.
Yeah,
and that was what I would say is a second evolution. And we had to hire, data scientists with various different skill sets, from more of a skill set when it comes to optimization, econometrics, to people who were very specifically just ML researchers that could understand and tackle specific problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're now in kind of the tail end of that, and where we've hired more teams of people that have various specializations, and we're kind of we're starting to kind of release experiments and tackle the hardest problems at Flexport.
Mm-hmm. And where is the data science team sitting within the engineering organization? Is it part of the engineering team?
That's a good point. So we started with an embedded model,
mm-hmm.
and we've moved to now a more centralized team.
More centralized data science team.
Yeah, I think embedded models are great when you don't know much about the business and you have to go and learn about the business. So for the first 3 to 6 months, I think back in 2018, a data scientist would go sit down with a business, with an operations team and learn everything there is to know about this business, because shipping, nobody knows anything about shipping. Like
Right.
I don't know anything about shipping before I got into Flexport. And now I know more than I would ever want to know. Same for these data scientists. They would go and understand specific things about, everything about the industry. And they would organically figure out, hey, here's a problem that can be solved with my skills. And here's a problem that we're going to bring in and try to solve. And it's at that point that, after kind of going out and implementing this embedded model and figured out, hey, what are the common problems at Flexport? We kind of banded together and centralized as a team and started building technology, like foundational technology, to help us deliver solutions to some of these problems.
Yeah. So for a centralized data science team, what are the pros and cons? Because it's definitely very convenient to influence engineering teams on the data schema. But do you feel if it has too much control over the engineering team and the database, it can slow down the growth or some other innovations on other teams?
Yeah. Definitely. And I think the pros, the reason we became a centralized team partially is there's a lot of commonalities, right? And if you go from research mode to actually building solutions, you want to build solutions that make their way to production. And it's a hard challenge. Yeah. So when data scientists band together, it's about solving kind of, you've identified a certain class of problems and now kind of want to use shared knowledge to kind of cross tackle them. And the obviously benefits of a centralized team from a leadership standpoint is that, like you can build sub teams and go on rotation and kind of knowledge share. Knowledge sharing is the most important thing. If you're embedded, it's very hard to knowledge share. And you won't build the same model. You'll probably build bespoke models that use different classifiers. And then at that point, at some point it deviates so much that you're only building, you basically become a consultancy.
Yeah.
And it's at the point where right before you become a consultancy that you want to band together and actually build a team and an organization that grows within the company. And that's when you start building shared knowledge and, evolve as a team.
Yeah. So what are the role of a central team? So for example, does it provide models for other teams or it also oversees decision-making of other teams?
I think central, and by the way, I'm not the best person to talk about this. I think our director of data science, past and present, are much better and give you a much more detailed answer. From my vantage point, I think the role of a centralized team is to be able to actually affect change at the organization, because it's very hard to do so if you're embedded. But if you can basically, for example, band together as a central team, you can identify problems that happen across engineering teams. So an interesting challenge is, exactly as you mentioned, data models and schemas change all the time. How do you make it so that you can affect not just change in a certain team, but an entire division, an entire engineering division at a company? And to do that, you actually have to have multiple data scientists band together, go to leadership and say, here are the list of problems that I'm seeing. And it's common across, this like multiple sub teams of this division. And we need to get to a better pattern. And then that team can actually be like a governing body for ensuring that the better engineering practice or better schema management practices are codified into like an SOP that engineers can follow. So it's really about like unifying taking best practices and then affecting organizational change at a higher level than if you're able to at the team level.
Yeah, there's definitely a benefit of having a centralized data science team like that. So you work with data scientists and also your work with engineering team. From your perspective, what are something, both for data scientists and engineers can learn so they can work with each other better?
Yeah, a lot. I think my thinking on this has really evolved. I would say the biggest thing is probably being able to speak a shared language.
Like a programming language?
Like a programming language, yeah. Sharing code is probably the easiest thing to start with. But the modern data scientists, you have to realize, have to grapple with a lot of engineering tools. Like, right. I don't know if you yourself work with Docker on an everyday basis, but some of our data scientists have to.
Yeah.
Working with Docker, working with Airflow, being able to package. So it's a lot more about understanding the engineering tools and being, I would say, still relatively early adopters. The tools still have a long way to go. But dealing with things like, like Docker desktop eating up your RAM, like it's like a really basic thing.
Yeah.
So I think having mutual empathy is probably very important for communication between engineering team and data science. I think the other one is, let's see, I would say a data scientist should really have extreme ownership of their domain.
Yeah.
And by
What do you
extreme
mean
ownership,
by extreme ownership?
I mean the concept of that you should own things end to end, and you're the one, you're not responsible for just your model. And that's it. And if
Yeah.
somebody's upstream data breaks, then your model breaks. What you have to do is go back to the engineering team and keep up to date with, hey, here's a roadmap for the next 3 to 6 months, right? Here are the major models we're thinking of incorporating. And oh, by the way, if we're going to have this new data source or new set of fields in these models, how can we start using them and how can we plan to use them? So it's like starting to think more ahead,
Yeah.
instead of like burying yourself into like a certain isolated problem and like continue to like rabbit hole on models, because that only takes you so far, right? Like you only learn so much by swapping out models. And there's algorithms, there's like platforms now that even tell you what the best model is. So you can't even do better than that, right? And it's more about understanding what changes, what strategic changes the engineering team is making.
Yeah, this is so important because in school, we learn a lot of statistics, theories, building models. When we're at work, we're just so, you know, can't wait to put what we learn in school into, our work. But in reality, it's not just a mathematical problem. It's just not a data science problem. You need to think like a business owner. How do you make sure you have new data flowing into the model? How do you make sure somebody would use your solution? So I think the ownership is very important. So sometimes we have to wear different hats, like program manager, product manager. I would say as a data scientist, don't put yourself in a silo. Whatever it takes for you to make sure the project will run successfully. Extreme ownership, have this mindset of, talking to different teams, being proactive is very important. Because sometimes even if your manager told you, hey, you just need to deliver this project and someone else will take care of it, but maybe someone else is busy, and it's your job to make sure, put some follow-up reminders on your calendar. Hey, do you need help? Or, sometimes maybe some changes in the organization, nobody really pay attention to it. And it's your job to find some other stakeholders to help you and implement your model.
Yeah, if you manage to do all of that, you've definitely become senior already. And I think that's part of the path toward becoming like somebody who's senior, regardless of whether you're an engineer or like a data scientist. Really, the more you understand business process and what the most efficient ways of kind of overcoming a certain obstacle. I mean, that's just skill that's just relevant, like across jobs. I think one thing that I think I'll add. Completely agree with everything you said, Daliana. I think one aspect that helped me was really reaching out and asking for peer help as well. I know it's a small thing, but I had too much pride early on in my career about asking for help.
Yeah.
As weird as it sounds, because you think you have something. Oh, that's not that you think you have something to prove. And by virtue of having something to prove, you want to own work and you want to kind of just hoard work as much as possible, so that you can really show that you've done your thing. And you know what I mean? Like you just look at how awesome I am. But then you realize after a certain point that it's ironic, but you're much more effective if you're able to reach out to your peers, collaborate, and you're able to meet them where they're at instead of staying where you are and having them meet you. I think that mentality shift specifically helps in every relationship, personal and professional. And it also helps when it comes to developing your career. It pays dividends over time, and it's an investment, and it's a skill that people have to learn. How do you meet your users where they are?
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought it up, because I feel when we just started our job, there's a lot of insecurity. You fear that, oh, if I ask for help, my manager is gonna think I'm incapable of delivering. So exactly like you said, even when someone suggests I collaborate with other people, I want to own everything. I think if I do that, I would be like a superstar. But from the perspective of a manager, it doesn't really matter whether you do this 100% or 80%, they just want this to be done quickly. And when you collaborate with other people, you also learn with other people. It's not that when you're on the team, you work on the same project, you have to compete. So have this, I think gradually you grew also more confident. So you're open to collaboration. And also it's not very productive. Someone else is working on something and you have to build the same thing, right? It's just out of your ego. Oh, I need to do your own version, but it's not very helpful for the project. And also my advice for data science who just run a team is when you think about your peers, your peers is not just other data scientists. Your peers can be other engineers, data engineers, or product managers. Talk to them, show them your work, have lunch with them, understand the culture, try not to just only hang out with your data science people. But of course, have a data science community is also helpful.
There's kind of a natural question that your question or your answer kind of raises. Am I allowed to ask questions on this show?
Sure.
Okay. What is the future ideal kind of data science role? Let's say it's 2025. It's 2021 right now, but let's say 2025. Daliana, what does a data science role look like in 2025?
Let's timestamp this and then come back to see what
come back to you.
Okay, so this is a question I'm going to ask you, but I can share my thoughts. I think there would be probably two type of data scientists. One type of data scientist is very business focused. They're very proficient in different type of tools. So in my mind, there will be tools. Maybe you can build some AI solutions by drag and drop, no code or low code. So they're really phrase data scientists in building models. So maybe they can run some experiments, solve some simple problems, and they are very good at those tools, and then they help business make a lot of decisions. So what they kind of do is like today, maybe BI or product analytics or data science generalist focusing on problem solving. And there will be another type of data scientist. Maybe the title will change. Maybe eventually their title would be more specialized, like machine learning researcher or some type of mathematician. So of course, they're also solving problems, but they're either research heavy or engineering heavy. They might have more advanced degrees. So instead of just using various of tools, they are focusing on developing those tools. So they deep in the math, the engineering. So I guess in my mind, there would be a group of problem solvers who are very good at those tools, and there would be researchers developing those algorithms, thinking about engineering capacity. I think there will be more and more engineering elements in data science. And those people who are building the infrastructure, building the algorithms, in general, I think people will be more specialized, and I'll see there are going to be more tools. So maybe in some teams, for example, if they don't need a lot of researchers, this product manager can also wear this data scientist hat. They can use different tools to make decisions. But again, I don't think data science will be replaced, because even if you're using a lot of tools, which I think actually right now in a lot of big companies, data science already work like that. For example, I think Amazon, maybe some other companies will have internal tools. You don't have to build everything in scratch, but you still need to understand statistics, how the tool works, because in reality, the data is never like normal. There are outliers. You have to be very confident in the theory in order to know how to use those tools. So that's my views for the future of data scientists. What do you think?
Oh, man. My ideas are pretty wild compared to that. I think I completely agree with what you said. I think I think you'll naturally see that as part of the curve. Maybe let me say not 5 years. I would say maybe in 10 years, what'll be a data scientist. I think everybody at the company is going to become a data scientist. That's one. Everybody at Flexport is going to be a data scientist in some way. And that's not because, it's not because the that definition expanded, it's because the tooling actually just got a lot better.
Yeah.
And the tooling is going to be finally at a place where, as you said, there's going to be no code, there's going to be low code, there's going to be various points at which a person can leverage certain tools to make up for kind of a lack of like just training in a data science skill set. I think the data scientist of right now will evolve to, instead of solving problems that are specific to the business, as businesses expand, the problems will get more interesting and they'll be different across domains. So data scientists will take what they've learned from, big companies right now, like Amazon, like Google, like Salesforce, and they'll take it and apply it toward domains that don't necessarily have those big companies yet. So ag tech, climate change. And I see the hedge fund model also being the case where these data scientists will actually probably organize themselves in a decentralized way. Decentralized is a buzzword, so I'm just going to use it, and actually form these like hedge fund like companies where they can take data and use it and do novel things that nobody has ever thought of before. And that's really using data science for extremely high leverage positions where maybe, you can make money off of it. Maybe you'll create wealth. Maybe you'll do something good. And I see that model is actually working out more successfully. So there'll be a range. There'll be data scientists who kind of definitely lead organizations. There'll be a class of data scientists who are just like everybody at an organization can be a data scientist or a lightweight data scientists in some ways. And there will be these organic groups of like superpowered data science teams that cut across industries and are able to generate more insights than would be the case if you were to work in an industry that has data silos. That's kind of a wilder vision, but I think that'll happen. Obviously, there will always be as well kind of these like targeted ML researchers that will always be pushing like the boundaries of any specific field, but that's going to grow fewer and fewer. Why? Because technology is going to make it much more accessible for people to solve the hardest problems. So
I like the idea of that. So basically you're saying there will be a group of data scientists. Maybe it's not like business asks them what problem to solve. They are able to think about what data they have and then discover some opportunities in business and then have a kind of really a data-driven problem-solving type of business and then just tackle whatever opportunity they see. And you mentioned this group of data scientists. Is this something I remember we talked about this human cloud? Are you thinking about this data science human cloud? Can you, for people who just listen to this term, can you explain what is the human cloud?
Yeah, the human cloud's a really interesting concept.
It's like a flash mob.
Yeah, that is a great analogy. It is a flash mob, except a flash mob is for pranks and actually no, not for pranks, for dances. Yeah. Imagine a flash mob of data scientists for your company. And instead of dancing, they're actually helping parse your data, deliver it, bring best practices, and actually delivering value to your company. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a flash mob. The way that we see it is, the way that I see it at least, is very much more engineering. It's if you think about how Amazon moved to the cloud and took essentially a physical server and made it elastic in terms of compute, right? You can think about work as becoming physical or as being taken from this big chunky piece of work into more finer, being broken up into finer grained units. And then the compute for that, which is human compute, being able to scale up or down in a fine-grained way. That's what, that's what billing per hour, billing per minute. There are a couple of services trying to tackle this directly. But the reality is you're going to have this world where you just reach into a cloud of people. There will probably be a service. You don't care who you get. You just pull out work, and then work is done ad hoc for you. And it matches very specifically to the problem that you have. So you won't be pulling off a data scientist. You're pulling off a data scientist who has a background in shipping and has worked in the same industry along with his fellow data engineers and fellow software engineers for 2 to 5 years. So yeah, that's the human cloud.
Yeah, and then for data science human cloud, there would be a group of data scientists that kind of gather. They might still have other responsibilities like product managers or engineers, but when they are aligned with a similar interest, they collaborate together to tackle this problem, right? Yeah, I think
and
that's really cool.
there's a focus on the skill and less of a focus necessarily, I would say, on the industry. And ideally, as a data scientist, you can work across industries and you can really have that. I mean, this is like the core skill, right? It's like the whole purpose of us learning skills is that it's transferable across industries. So we're not limited by, oh, like Daliana, you're in logistics and shipping and marketplaces. Now you're going to be there forever. You know, like we don't have to do that. We can literally take you can take what your skills and go to a hedge fund right now and make money off of just, bets on the market if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So when we think about the future of data science for data scientists today or people who are in school studying, what type of skills you think they should adopt, prepare for the future of data science?
This is going to be somewhat of a controversial question or answer, but I would say one, obviously learn math. Learn math.
Learn math is controversial these days.
Math is controversial these days. Yeah. I would say probably learn everything except computer science. It sounds crazy, but pure computer science is something that a lot of people have written about, and it's very accessible via the web. Just learn math, because the type of thinking that you get from math is you're not going to get it from anywhere else. And then beyond math, I would surround myself. I probably do a math minor, and I would get into a field that I was very interested in. That is not like a pure like science play. So we know that climate change is going to be a huge, or like ESG is going to be a huge investment field. Yeah. I mean, it already is. So learning more about a domain and getting deep into a domain is actually going to be more important, I think.
Yeah.
Even like neuroscience, if you really want to go do into pharma or into bio, probably the best way is to do neuroscience or some of the specialty where you're deep into that field and you learn a lot about a specific field. That combined with a math skill is probably the ideal for a data scientist, rather than somebody who's just very mathematically driven.
I think the domain knowledge in industry is going to be more and more important. And because different users in the industry is so different, and if you don't understand how people think, how people work, it's actually very hard for you to create a model that will solve the business problem. So a lot of people think of those things as soft skills, but I think those actually are pretty important. We don't learn that in school, but it doesn't mean it's not useful. So if you just join a company, try to learn more about the industry, try to talk to the business leaders on the team to see what do they think, what do they read. It's going to be very helpful for you to become a successful data scientist.
Yeah, which is really hard to do right now. Sorry, just jump all that. It's been a point that I wanted to jump back on for a while now. Is, I mean, as a data scientist, it was very hard for me to actually reach out to other people in the industry. So this gets into mentorship and that aspect. And I think that's actually part of the challenge right now, if you're talking about careers, is how do you actually find a mentor? Because that's a huge difference between finding a mentor who can help guide you is extremely important. How you build a personal brand from that is also going to be really important as you get guided. And I think mentorship and building a personal brand kind of go hand in hand because you need both, right? The mentor is kind of a guiding light for you. I'm kind of curious, how did you think about that aspect, like reaching out to other people, right? Because as a lowly data scientist intern, it's very hard to actually find anybody that you could chat with.
Yeah, so this is a great question. I think when we think about mentorship, sometimes we think about, oh, I need to find this industry leader, this super famous person to be my mentor. So actually, I think it's very helpful to just find somebody who is maybe only 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. So this person know where you're at and can give actionable advice for you. So if you're in the company, you just started, like I mentioned, maybe you're the only data person on the team. So you can talk to an engineer or a data engineer. Maybe they're not in the same role as you, but you can talk to them. I'm sure they will collaborate with data scientists and know how the company works, how the industry works. I think this is a way to find a mentor, reach out to people on your team, your sister team directly, and also people who you work with. the people who you do project with, they can also be your mentor. If you really feel you learned a lot from this person, you can schedule a chat with them. It's also very natural. This person already know your work, so they're more likely to give you some advice. And you don't have to give this person a lot of pressure. Oh, we have to meet every week. It could be just kind of on demand type of checking, have lunch with them, show them your work. Another thing is when you have a meet your mentor, someone in your company specifically, don't just meet and talk. See if you can show them your work. Ask them to give your feedback. And if they think it's interesting, maybe you can collaborate with them. Isn't that great to, work with your mentor? So instead of just putting them on a pedestal, see if you can build a working relationship with them.
Definitely. That last point is so spot on. Do not put them on a pedestal. As weird as it sounds, human beings don't like to be put on. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm not sure. I won't speak for everyone.
Do you want to be put on a pedestal?
No. I get so uncomfortable when I get put on a pedestal. And for some reason, I think culturally people think it's something that flatters people. For me, it actually makes it hard for me to engage because it's hard to treat me as a person. And one thing I'll also say was couple of things. One is actually, no, the most important thing is you also have to like the person in a personal level. It's so weird, but it's hard to build that relationship if you don't have some kind of personal connection with that person. And oh, by the way, if I have a personal connection and I'm not directly in the field that you're in, still build a relationship with me because I have contacts. And as I evolve throughout my career, we're going to have a lot of connections to share. So building with people that are adjacent to you and higher up are both really important. And the other one is just like I said, like Daliana said, putting your energy out there, putting yourself out there, showing your voice to people is very important. It's not just about you, it's about who you are and your story. And that gets into building a personal brand, but it's incredibly important.
Yeah. So when you talk about building a relationship with people, of course, we want to have this relationship that help us grow in our career, but we also want to seem genuine. So how do you build relationships that, of course, you want it to be beneficial for you, but also not very transactional? How do you make other person feel comfortable?
Yeah, we have a blog post coming out about this, but it's essentially about how do you build relationships? And part of it is just, you can start anywhere. You can start in LinkedIn DMs. This is what our blog post is about, but it's like even when you're reaching out to ask for a job, you're building a relationship. Yeah. If you are going and having coffee with somebody to solve their problem, you're building a relationship. And so you're always kind of relationship building, whether you think so or not. Now, in terms of how you appear authentic, I think that Diana, you already mentioned this. It's about bringing people along with their journey and seeing who wants to do that. There is no clear ask. And when you move away from the clear ask of, hey, here's what you can do for me, or here's what I can do for you, and just say, here's who I'm about. Would you like to come along with me?
Yeah.
I think that changes a lot of things. That's kind of asking without really asking. It's just asking, do you want to work with me? Not not can you do this for me, right? And there might be opportunities later on, but the whole goal is to just figure out points of connection, figure out what you're excited about, learn more about the person, be really curious about the other person. I feel like just because of my natural curiosity, I just had to ask people a lot of questions about who they are and just interesting questions about what they think about the world. And if you're also naturally curious and you like asking these questions that nobody else asks, then I'll vibe with you. So
basically asking questions is a great way to connect with people. If people feel your genuine curiosity for them, they're more likely to open up. And you also mentioned, I think it's very great mindset to say, hey, this is what I'm about. Do you want to come along? I think that takes a lot of confidence to say this, because if you say, hey, can I be your mentee, this and that, it's like you're chasing them. And
you're already framing it as a transactional relationship by saying, you're ahead of me. Can I be your mentee? Well, that's great, but like, what am I supposed to do? Then the immediate question is, what what are the expectations? What do you want out of the relationship, right? And it's not about that. It's just about like, who are you? You know, like who are you? And like, do you want to develop a relationship? I'm working on something really great and would love to just get your thoughts.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it.
If you don't reply, I totally understand. It's fine,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But like, okay. Let's talk about that for a bit. There's also a healthy bit of rejection in here, right? And let's be frank about it. Like, it's better that we talk about rejection as something that, yeah, like I've gotten a lot of cold DMs where I just haven't gotten any replies back. And I'm on the giving end of that too. It's like I also don't reply to the majority of my messages. So I apologize if you've ever been on the receiving end of that cold shoulder. But I do that because, look, at the end of the day, you have to prioritize, and there's too many people that reach out. And so you have to show some value. And again, like I have thoughts about this that we're going to share in a blog, but how do you actually signal without asking for something? How do you signal what you want and who you're about, and get people along in a very like in a short, crisp way, without really saying, here's what I want, and here's what I want from you specifically, right? That's hard.
Yeah. And then, so when you look at your DMs, what is some type of message that will stand out that you actually respond?
Oh, very few, but there's a couple. Usually it's about help. And it's about, hey, it's asking for help, but not in a way where it's transactional. And usually they hook into an interest of mine. I mean, it's not hard to figure out what I'm interested in. Just go to my blog, go to my LinkedIn. And part of it's like the mentor has to put, or the mentor, like we have to put ourselves out there too, for people to find. But assuming people are able to find me, understand what I'm interested in, then it's just about showing that you read some of my articles and that you're really curious, and or you're really curious about something that we're working on as a team or as an organization, and you just want to know more. I always reply to those.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, because they either really interested in you, they did their homework, it's personalized note, or they really have a specific ask that probably only you can help them. So it's not like, sometimes they just say hi, they don't even mention your name. I feel they probably just send out this message to 100 people, and I don't even feel bad if I don't respond. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And especially if they don't even put their interest out there. Yes, you can say you're a data scientist or a data analyst or whatever. But beyond that, like, what if I ask you what you're passionate about within data science, right? Like, what got you into data science in the first place? I have no idea. And that's all I'm looking for. I'm just looking for the story of how you got in there and what your struggles were and what you hope to get out of it.
And then also a lot of people just first thing they say, hey, can you give me a job? What I always say is talk to people online like how you talk to people in real world. If you meet me in real world, you wouldn't just say that to me, right?
Can I have a job?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty awkward.
Yeah, like, I'm open to help people, but I cannot help people that I don't even know, or I also have no respect for my time. Yeah. So be mindful when you reach out to people, make it easier for them to understand you, make it most time people want to help you, but don't make it difficult for people to help you.
Exactly. That's the important takeaway. People want to help. I want to help everybody that I can.
Great. So, one question about, we talk about data science, mentorship, and going back to being a manager. So after you become a manager from IC, what are something you feel different about engineering or data science career? Like, from a manager's perspective, what would you feel you should have done differently as an individual contributor?
Oh, as an IC. Oh, that's an interesting question. I actually read that question or heard that question wrong when I first thought about it. Okay, when I first became an IC, I think everything we talked about was not known to me. I think extreme ownership is probably the most important one.
Yeah.
That I would say is something that as an IC, if I just shook myself and was like, hey, dude, you have to do this early on. Yeah. That's the most important piece of advice I would give. I would also say beyond that, learning to work on something that you don't want to work on is a skill.
Yeah.
Learning how to overcome and reshift and reframe certain things, so that you don't even think about it and you just work on it as you would any other task that you love, would be a tactical advice I would give. So
this is hard. So how do you overcome that? How do you reframe or change your mindset to work on something you don't like?
Ooh, that's really hard. You find joy in the results. You find joy in helping people. It really comes down to like a personal relationship of the other person on the other side. Like, do you like working with them? And if you do, then you'll get fun out of any trivial task. Like, even if it's like fixing some configuration and then having to rerun the entire thing, you do it because the person's laughing with you. Yeah, the person's not like, he's like, oh yeah, like this is a really small config. Let's have a drink over it. That's so much easier than somebody forcing you, like twisting your hand to do it. I wouldn't want to do that for them.
Yeah.
So it's part of it has to do with the team. And then beyond that, if you're thinking about dirty work like data cleaning, which no data scientist wants to do, well, it's about thinking about how important this is for, as a transferable skill, the future, and realizing that like this is what differentiates you. Like, people don't realize this, but like what differentiates data scientists is the ability to understand how to fix your data in a way that's novel and do it really quickly. And like, man, that's so huge, for your career. It's a small thing, but it's so huge. At least that's how I do it. So getting interest, realizing that the thing that you do, and taking deliberate practice, finding joy in deliberately practicing these little skill sets, and just being good at like taking pride in doing what you do extremely well and repeating it. Not look, okay, one other thing, sorry, I'm like wandering here. Beyond just like deliberate practicing, don't look at other people. Don't look at other people as much as you can in terms of what they've accomplished, because that gives you unnecessary pressure to not be yourself.
This is hard.
Yeah, it's hard because we're surrounded by competition, right?
Yeah.
So I think maybe even before learning how to enjoy your work, phase one of enjoying your work is just enjoying it at your own pace, like drinking that coffee at your own pace instead of slurping it down, even though it's really hot, just because somebody else also like slurped it down really quickly, right? Look, you enjoy your coffee at your own pace, right? And you just keep in flow and realize that whatever the person is working on, if they had success early on in their career, they're probably running up against something later on. And it's about running a marathon, not running a small race.
Yeah, that's very powerful. But I think it's helpful to break down the marathon into a few sprints. For example, if you want to finish this project or prepare for the interview, it's also good to have I don't believe you can always have 100% work-life balance. I think sometimes it's okay to be a little bit imbalanced, put ourselves in the sprint while you're in the mindset, finish this thing instead of just drag it, say, I would do this project in 3 years because something else might pop up and then you might just get distracted.
Oh yeah, always do it immediately.
Yeah,
that's what I've learned for blog posts, for everything. Just do it immediately, because if you don't, then it's going to take you, it could take up to 8-10 years. There's been something I've been wanting to learn for 8-10 years. Like, I hate to admit it, and I still haven't learned it yet. I'm like pretty ashamed by that. Like it takes a lot of
what is the thing you really want to learn?
What is the thing I really want to learn? Oh man, it's actually, well, it's weird, but it's puzzle solving. There's this puzzle called the hardest puzzle.
Wow.
I think the hardest puzzle in the world.
Yeah.
And it's by George Bull. It's about 3 gods and asking questions, and I've never solved it. And I've always wanted to, and I discovered it back in 2012. And it's on Wikipedia, but I still don't have the answer for it. And I refuse to scroll down. So it's really weird, but like that type of like abstract problem solving is something that I really wanted to just always learn. I never learned it. The other one is new programming languages. I wanted to build a large app in Haskell, and I've never done it before. So, and I don't think I ever will at this point. There's too many new paradigms coming out. That kind of make a bet on the future that I'm interested in. So I should just learned it back when I was 22. Yeah.
Well, the best time to learn was back when you're 22, and the second best time is now.
Is now. Yes, correct. Yes, you're right. I should start on it tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah, but I know we all have priorities. So I know you're building a startup called Senpai. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Thank you for asking. Senpai is revolving around some concepts that we talked about as part of this podcast. So the goal is that we want people to be able to build their personal brand and build a following. That's kind of the larger mission. We think all of us who have full-time jobs, when we're just in our full-time jobs and doing nothing else, not all of us are the best version of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of us, what makes us our best version is being able to put ourselves out there, being able to produce things like not just code, but things like art, things like writing, podcasts, even. And we want to create and liberate ourselves and become better versions, and that's the mission behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's various steps along that journey where you get stuck and fall back into the trap of, I call it trap of like traditional employment, but it really is, it's this vortex. And if you get stuck, you can easily go back.
Yeah.
Like an example is, a couple of years ago, I tried to build a consultancy and onboard people, but sometimes you go through dry spells. And as soon as I went through my first dry spell of clients, I immediately went back to full-time employment.
Yeah.
Senpai is kind of the set of tools and set of platform or a platform that I would have wanted to be able to continue to make steady income and continue to build a following and continue to just work on something as I continue to grow my personal brand. It's a platform for really helping us move off.
Yeah. That's really great. I'm very excited to see more people adopt this. So what is something you spend a lot of time doing when you're not working?
Oh, nice. Okay, this is this is the first easy question I've gotten today. So I just work out a lot, and I think everybody has to have a hobby. I think my hobby is working out. As weird as it sounds, yeah, I do a mix of running, weightlifting, CrossFit. That's what I do.
Yeah. What do you like about working out?
I work out for mental reasons. So it helps me clear it just helps me de-stress and helps me clear my mind. It's gone to the point where like it's a tool that I use to support my work. And I can't imagine living without it. Some people have meditation, some people have yoga. Mine is going into the gym for about 2 to 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Per session, max about probably for 14 hours per week. And I'm just going in and feeling really good about how I feel and how I look. Yeah.
So when you're in the gym, say for 2 to 4 hours, what's on your mind? Do you just listen to music? Do you like think?
No, I talk to people.
Oh, you talk to people.
It's actually
can you work out and you talk to me? You're just, how's your day?
It sounds kind of sad, but it's the main way that I socialize now. Is if you want to socialize and build a relationship with me, you should just meet me at the gym. It's kind of crazy the number of personal.
Which gym are you going to? Go meet Jim at a gym.
Well, if I'm ever in SF, come say hi to me in Fitness SF.
Okay.
I go to various ones. You can find me in the platforms room of most SFs. And I just offer free advice because I just love talking about working out. And you can probably help me point out things that are wrong with what I'm doing. I can probably help you build a program. I can help you overcome whatever that next hurdle you have. And in terms of mental, with working out, in terms of dieting, if you want tips on that, I can definitely share what I've done. Basically, I've just spent so much time doing it that I just love talking about it at this point. So.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. I know you're going to be in SF at the end of the month. Can we do a gym session together?
Yeah, let's work out. Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah, there's a gym in that building. We should definitely go.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm totally down. Like I said, like part of it is also for me, like my hobbies are around like building community. So beyond working out, it's like helping connect people in various ways, like hosting dinners, like stuff like that. So it's all social. So.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So what are some interesting relationship you have formed from talking to people at the gym?
I think, they're interesting because they're different walks of life than tech, and they take me out of tech. So one relationship that I've built is, I would say somebody who is, I don't know if she's going to listen to this podcast. Be interesting. She's an occupational therapist from LA. And Yeah, I mean, she just talks to me about like a different slice of or a very different industry, and she gives me insights into like what occupational therapy, palliative care might look like. Like she talks to like she hears stories from people who are like 50s, 60s, like not 50s, like 60s, 70s, and in their 80s, and they have
Mhm.
super fascinating stories to tell, and just a very different slice of life. So that's one. I would say another is yeah, just listening to somebody that I work out with the gym regularly now. He's actually somebody who I feel like is like maybe a couple steps behind myself in terms of like he's doing a startup, he's like raising
Mm.
money, he's like doing
Yeah.
that, and it's really interesting to see kind of his personal journey
Mhm.
in that world. So yeah, those are two that come to top of mind.
That's really cool. And then you mentioned this person just start a company, raising fund, and for other people who are thinking about, leaving their current job and starting a company, how do you like? What's your advice? How do you, a lot of people are looking for the moment when they just the leap of faith. Um, when is the right time to to start a company? Like, how do you
Yeah,
know?
well, now, like literally now,
Yeah.
because of the fact that the fundraising is really easy and the cost of
Hmm.
capital has never been cheaper.
Yeah.
Um, I think beyond that, the advice I would give to myself earlier is start to write a lot, write,
Mm.
put yourself out there. Like it's the same for how you build a personal brand. Like just write, put yourself out there. But
Yeah.
instead of writing about your personal journey, maybe you want to write about thoughts of what you think are going to be the future, or
Mm.
what are the problems that you see that you're like, man, I want help on this. I want people to help bring that I want to bring along
Hmm.
to help me figure out how to solve this problem because it's something that'll always be there and somebody's got to tackle it. Right. And I think
Yeah.
these problems, no matter what you want to work on, it starts with that. It starts with bringing people along, writing and writing and writing. This is how I met my co-founder is
Oh,
through
wow.
his writing. It's just, he published a piece in a Discord channel that I was a part of.
Hmm.
I clicked on it. I read it. It was very impressive. And in terms of thinking, in terms of just the clarity of thought, and I
Hmm.
resonated with his mission. So write about the mission, write about what you want to work on, bring people along, start building a following. And then whether you go and start your own business, whether you go and do a podcast on the side
Hmm.
or a YouTube channel, that's where it starts.
Yeah. Definitely after I started to write blogs and then post contents on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people reaching out to me, different type of opportunities. So definitely um, put yourself out there because a lot of people tell me, "Hey, I don't know anything. My writing is bad." It's just we are stuck in our head all the time.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much you know that other people don't know. If you have the concern, talk to someone who is doing something completely different than you
Yes,
and tell them
exactly.
about this idea. They don't even know the
That's
basic concept of what you know. So
exactly.
you know something. And even if it is a topic that other people have shared, you have your own perspective, you have your own language, you have your own style, and you might speak to a very different group of people than other people. So
Yeah.
and also, when you started, don't have too much expectation. I would say just have fun. Do write about whatever interests you. Don't think too much about whether other people will like it. I think the most important thing is to enjoy it yourself. And when other people feel the energy, they will follow you. They will also enjoy it.
Absolutely. So one thing I just read about this, and I absolutely agree. I've actually talked to various people about this, how
Mm.
to how to how to, how to jump that hurdle.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, or one of the things I've been reading recently that helped me on this was just because it's your thought doesn't mean it's a thought yet. For you
Mm.
to actually have a thought, it has to be connected to somebody else that recognizes that thought. It sounds abstract, but it's along the lines of sharing and putting yourself out there and really like you need other people to connect with you to make it something significant.
So you are a engineer, data scientist. You study computer science in school, and you also like um, connecting with people. So I'm curious, what were you like when you were a teenager or a kid?
I was very awkward, and I didn't. I very different,
Oh, really?
to put it mildly. Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of interesting because it's more my personal background. But I mean, happy to share some of it. I have you watched Queen's Gambit?
No, I haven't.
Okay. If you have, well, I definitely recommend it.
Okay.
Two, I was one of those people where I was a
Mm,
chess player, and that became my life. And that was what I did for a long time, and that informs a lot of kind of my I guess social habits that
mm,
I developed before college. As a teenager, I was very introverted, didn't talk to anybody,
mhm.
just loved doing like keeping in my swim lanes and doing what I did.
Yeah.
In college, I kind of tried to be a social butterfly
Mm,
and try to talk to everybody and build this new identity for myself,
mhm.
and kind of
What happened with the shift? Like, what make you want to start socialize more, and how do you overcome the, fear of, rejection or
oh, I think it's maybe I should write about this.
yeah,
That
it's
was worth
very
writing
interesting.
about.
Mm-hmm.
So one, it depends on your personality. My personality has always been, if I'm going to set my mind to something, I'm going to do it, no matter
Yeah.
how
Okay.
painful or awkward or anything it is.
Yeah.
And I've just never set myself into an environment where people, there's that. The second is I had an environment where nobody knew each other. Everybody was on fair playing grounds in college.
Mm,
And, in that environment, I think it made me feel really comfortable just putting myself out there. So that combined with just me forcefully putting myself out there, even if there were awkward silences when talking to somebody, I think really helped. And then kind of taking those awkward interactions and like, I'm a nerd at the end of the day. So I
yeah.
think about things very deliberately. I like
Mm-hmm.
improve incrementally with every little thing. And like,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you talk to more people and you get better and you develop social skills. And yeah, I think just by observing people and putting yourself out there, you can learn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So you said you're a chess player.
Yes.
Did you want it to be a engineer or scientist growing up?
No, I wanted to be a paleontologist, which is
Oh.
somebody that studied dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. I just love dinosaurs. Yeah, I was a strange
Yeah.
kid, as you can probably tell. I was a paleontologist wannabe chess player slash tennis player, and I just
Yeah.
like that. That's who I am.
Oh wow, that's really cool. So okay, playing chess. What are some career lessons or life lessons that you feel you get inspired from playing chess?
Strategic and tactical thinking. I knew
Mm-hmm.
what the difference between those were from a really early age.
Mm.
How you think 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Oh wow,
Um,
yeah.
like you have to think 4 or 5 steps ahead at least in
Mm-hmm.
chess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, knowing the value of what being good means. So knowing that you're not really even a good player until you know what you're bad at,
Mm.
and knowing what expertise means. Oh, that's actually a really big thing. Sorry, this really informs a lot of what we're doing right now. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think understanding what it takes to become an expert at something,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there are levels to this, and knowing when just because you've reached kind of somewhere where you think you're the top doesn't mean you're at all close to being an expert. You have to reach that
Mm.
point at least 4 or 5 times and seen and interacted with enough people in that industry to know where you are.
Mm.
That's the sign of expertise.
Oh, interesting. So basically, if you reach some level just one time, maybe you're just lucky. So you want to make sure you can be there, more frequently, so you're really an expert.
Yeah, and that takes much longer than 10,000 hours to build. It
Mm-hmm.
takes 10,000 hours putting yourself out there, going and talking to everybody. So, I mean, it's really hard. This is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to be aware of your weakness. Sometimes because of ego, it's hard to find our weakness. So how do you find your weakness or area of improvement?
Yeah, it's really hard. You need other people to show you, right? Like you don't
Mm-hmm.
know that you haven't seen something in chess
Yeah.
until they play the move. And then you
Mm.
realize, oh my God, I just didn't even think about that move, right?
Yeah.
And like that's a very real way to tell you that, or
Mm-hmm.
to of showing you that, essentially you were completely wrong. And now you just lost the game. Oh, there's one last thing that
Yeah.
chess
Yeah.
taught.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What pressure means.
Okay.
Um, if you get to a certain level in chess,
Mm.
the difference between the winning and losing a game is winning or losing a pawn. It's not losing your queen. Right? You don't have to lose a lot to lose the game. So it's really about like even the smallest of differences can yield a huge advantage if you know how to actually take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's about this is for a career too. Like if it's about getting yourself to the point where you can take advantage of even a small difference in the situation to create a competitive advantage. And you need to practice. You need to build yourself up to the point where you can do that. So it's about setting yourself up for the opportunity to actually take advantage of that when they appear, because those appear. They're not always in your control. It's because of a move your opponent made, a slight error that your opponent made that allows you to capitalize.
Yeah. So do you still, I feel like those are very important life lessons, and then you already have the advantage to be aware of that when you're a teenager. Do you still play chess now?
Yeah, I play chess. Do you want to play? I'm
I
on
don't know how to play
I'm on
chess.
chess.com. I can do it.
Okay.
I'm on chess.com. I still play regularly
Yeah.
online. Now, as you know, during the pandemic, chess has gotten really big.
Yeah. And also because of the show you mentioned. Yeah.
Queen's Gambit. Yes, it
Yeah.
tells the story of our childhoods. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. My janitor. So there in the show, the person that teaches chess to Elizabeth, I think,
Yeah. Oh,
or
wow.
Beth, is a janitor at her school, and my equivalent of a janitor, oh man, was an 80-year-old Cuban man
Wow.
at the park that smoked cigars all day and would play chess with me just
Yeah.
because he was just at the park all day. It was so crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds so interesting. And I did want to ask you, you mentioned about how to deal with the stress. So in chats or in work right now, what do you do when there's like a stressful situation or there's a deadline, something is not working?
Well, I compartmentalize it as best I can.
Yeah.
I don't try to let it get to me, and then I go to the gym as usually how I handle
Yeah.
things. It's very hard.
Right.
I've been through some stress. I mean, we've all been through kind of stressful situations.
Yeah.
The best I can, I have a yes and mentality, and I try not to let the situation kind of get to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
basically,
how,
yeah. But
and then when you're doing something, for example, playing chess or in the middle of a, conversation or it's stressful, how do you handle that at the moment? Like,
so if we're talking about fight or flight situations, I fight and I
yeah.
stay.
Okay.
So that's my initial reaction. I don't hold back, and I actually push it back on the other person. So I challenge them, and ideally, the way that I resolve conflict is by kind of co-creating with the other person as much as I can, and letting them know that we're actually all on the same page and working on the same mission.
Yeah, I like co-creating. I just came across the concept. There's some co-creating training that I'm interested in. So yeah.
Training? Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I'm still just learning about it. I went to a seminar. I think, like you mentioned, sometime when we talk to somebody, it's not like you want to negotiate with them or the terms are fixed. Maybe during a conversation, you can come out with something more creative. So I think when you go into a situation with a more open mindset, it can also help reduce the stress and also can allow you to be more receptive to maybe a better solution that you weren't aware of before. Like now we're co-creating, right? Even you're talking and I'm talking, but because we're talking together, I feel we said some very interesting things that, if we're just doing a video recording individually, we wouldn't be able to come out of it.
Yeah, it's about, this doesn't sound super abstract, but my mind immediately jumps to this. It's about the game that you want to play. And a stressful situation is usually one where you're playing a game to win something. And one where you co-create is an infinite game where you kind of are just, you just want to continue playing this game, and so depending on how you view it, you can get very different outcomes. I typically like to play infinite games because they're less stressful.
Yeah. Those are great insights. So Before we wrap up, so what are something in your career, in your life that you are very excited about that you want to share with us?
Well, it's obviously building the startup that I'm doing right now. But more importantly, like I gotta be honest, I love it when people are able to use something that I built.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, and I look forward to people genuinely changing their lives.
Mhm.
Even if it's like 1,000 people. Actually, that's a large number, but like even people being able to get paid and kind of change the shape of their careers because of something I built. That's huge.
Yeah. And so for people who want to try it, where can they sign up?
Yeah, so we have a closed beta right now. But if you want to express interest, sign up at senpai.so
Hmm.
um, and join the waitlist and obviously share the waitlist. And we'll kind of, and definitely reach out to me because if you're interested in the closed beta, and we can definitely get you signed up.
Hmm.
My email, you can actually reach me on Twitter. My Twitter is ataki12, so ATAKI 12. The
What is
number.
that? What does it mean?
Oh, it's a secret. I haven't shared it with many people.
Okay.
It's
Maybe
meant to
next
be a
time.
secret, but it's Ataki everywhere,
Uh-huh.
either Ataki or Ataki 12
Okay.
on GitHub and everywhere else.
Cool. Um, Thank you so much, Jim, to for sharing your career journey and so many great advice. And it's been really fun. I'm very excited to see what's your next venture look like and how Senpai's future look like.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much for co-creating with me
Yeah,
on the
it's an
podcast.
honor.
Yeah, I
Um,
enjoyed our time.
cool. Thank you, Jim.
All right, take care.